What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our All 32 series on the Pick Six podcast. Will Brinson and Katie Mox here. This is the series where we catch you up with insiders to give you the need-to-know information on every NFL team. And today we are so excited to be catching up with ESPN reporter covering the Tennessee Titans, Turron Davenport. Turron, thank you so much for joining us today. How's everything going in Tennessee?
Everything is great. Thank you for having me.
It's a wonderful city. Ryan Wilson always says on the podcast that there's no team that doesn't like if you had to pick a team in the NFL that doesn't fit the city that they play in, the Titans are like the number one team because it's like run ball, vanilla, defense, Vrabel, meat. And it's like, meanwhile, it's like bachelorette parties are flying up and down Broadway with people hanging off of buses. Toronto, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being a Harlem Globetrotters game and 10 being American Ninja Warrior, how much of a competition is there actually going on between Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis?
Yeah, I would probably say a 2 or a 3. It's not really a competition, honestly. They've said, excuse me, they said that Ryan Tannehill is the starter, and that's pretty much how it's been. I mean, he's taken pretty much all the first team reps. He's head and shoulders better than Malik Willis, and Will Levis through what we've seen in OTAs and minicamp.
Sorry, no disrespect there to Malik Willis too. It's just like given the, I think Vrabel like made his intentions very clear when he signed Josh Dobbs literally off the street last year before the Week 17 game or 18 game.
Yeah, Malik Willis was never supposed to play last year. To be honest with you, he was always a developmental prospect that they were going to bring along gradually, and he was just rushed into action, and we saw the results. And now he's caught in a battle for the backup spot.
So how would you say, what would we phrase what the Titans are right now? Are they rebuilding, retooling, competitively re-engaging? We do know that DeAndre Hopkins met with the team. What are the vibes right now? What is this team doing right now? Would you say this is more of a rebuilding year?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I think it's more like a reload. And if you talk to the players, they'll tell you like they have every intention to compete for a Super Bowl this upcoming season. And I mean, that's what you would expect from these guys at this level, the ultimate competitors. And if you look at the roster, there are a few pieces away from being able to go against a team like the Bills, the Chiefs, et cetera. They still need to add some weaponry on the offensive side of things. But if you look, their formula has always been run the football, play defense, limit turnovers, and they're built once again to be able to do that. So I think if you look at them, their belief is honestly to compete. It's not a rebuild. They're not putting everything back together. It's already together in their mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird in the NFL. I mean, I guess any sport really. Like you can't be an athlete, and you can't be competitive. You can't have any competitive nature whatsoever. Even like our jobs, you can't be like, well, I think we're like the 8th or 10th best football podcast out there. That's just where we're sitting on it. But I mean, like you can't, if you're an NFL player, there's an NFL player in the world. We talked about with Brady Quinn, like Dee Milliner came out like 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever it was. And they're like, you remember this? And they're like, do you think like who's the best cornerback in the NFL? He's like, me. And everybody's like, what? You're not even the best cornerback on the sorry Jets team. He's like, but I mean, you have to act that way and feel that way and believe that way. And there's no chance in hell that Mike Vrabel would roster anybody, in my opinion, he wouldn't, that doesn't actually believe they can go out and win on any given day. We've seen it, man. Vrabel dragged them to the number 1 seed, and it was either 2020 or 2021. I mean, like they've been competitive despite themselves, really. I guess like it's hard to find a path. It's hard to look at this team and find a path where they are successful. But you believe internally they are saying, okay, this might not be pretty, but we've got enough where we can play defense and we can run the football with Derrick Henry. Where's he at in terms of his, physical, mental, contractually? Like he's in, I mean, it's kind of a weird time to be Derrick Henry right now. Do you think he has the big season again, and does he do it on the Titans all year?
Yeah, I think he does have the big season again. And one of the things I've always liked about Derrick Henry is his ability to compartmentalize, right? He'll take that contract talk and put it over there and not be concerned with it. And that's how it was when he was in the contract year before. Obviously, with 2 voidable years, this is possibly the last dance for him. So I think, Derrick Henry is a guy that continues, even as he's approaching 30 years old, he continues to be someone that can run the football as well as anyone in the league. Now, his yards per carry have decreased some, and he doesn't exactly have that same finishing ability that he used to, whereas he got to the second level in the pass, and it's deuces. He's gone. He's pulling away from everybody. And you'll see him do that, but he's gotten caught from behind a couple times over the past season. So that's probably where you'll see the big change, but he's still in superb shape. He actually came to OTAs earlier than he has in the 5 seasons that I've covered this team. So that was a good sign. He didn't take part as much in OTAs and minicamp, but there were opportunities for him to catch the football and do those types of things. So I think he's going to be able to hit the ground running and have another solid year.
All right, so just to follow up on that, so in the last 3 years, he had the 370 carry season where he went for 2K, right? And then the following year, they ran him like 150 times in the first 7 weeks or something insane. It was like he was on pace to like shatter that number, and that's when he finally got hurt, right? And you're laughing because you know how big the number was. Like if you were following the Titans, you're like, what are they doing? And then he misses most of the season with the foot injury because he had too much wear and tear. And then this past year at 330, 334 maybe carries. And like 330 has been the magic number for analytics. Football Outsiders talks about it. If you go over 330, you are just like you're asking to get injured the following season or see a decline in production. Do you think the Titans will pump the brakes at all in their usage early on of Derrick Henry, or are we going to see full-blown King Henry out of the gate given this roster?
I think they're going to continue to run the football, but I don't know if it's going to be as much because you look at it, Tim Kelly, he's a guy that likes to use a lot of empty, likes to use a lot of 13 personnel, 12 personnel, but pass out of that set, the 12 or 13 personnel. So I think it's going to be balanced. But then one thing to also be aware of is Tajay Spears, the rookie out of Tulane, who had an awesome senior season. And then he really did well at the Senior Bowl. They're doing a lot to get him involved, not just running the football, but in the passing game also. So I think that will offset it slightly.
So if they're still going to run the ball and maybe there's offset it a little bit, you look at Derrick Henry's regular season rushing yards, his over and under is set to 1225.5. I believe he was over 1,500 yards last season. You look at his rushing touchdowns, that line is set to 9.5. We still going over for Henry on these?
Absolutely. Yeah. 1,200 yards, I'm going over. Especially you look at how many games the season is now. Yeah, he in the 9.5 touchdowns, I'm going over also because, they get inside the 5-yard line. Even it's just a red zone period, let alone low red zone. He's getting the football, and no one scores more 1- and 2-yard touchdowns than Derrick Henry. So that's always going to be a bonus.
He had 10 rushing touchdowns when he played 8 games in 2021. He has 56 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 years.
Insane.
That is outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like, if you buy the two, for me, the two competing things here with Henry are, you mentioned the compartmentalization, and I think that's key, but I also think he knows it's a contract here, and he knows that if he runs really well this season, he's averaged over the past 4 years 1,510 yards, 1,510.5 yards and 14 touchdowns, which is just ridiculous. And if he does that again, like he's going to get paid on the open market. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And man, if he can stay healthy, he can do damage. All right, the Titans, if they want to do damage, they're going to have to be good on defense. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll ask you about the defense next. Okay, so defensively, the Titans, I feel like they've been better than what the advanced analytics say. Like, I think they're like 20th last year and 22nd in Football Outsiders DVOA. But just like anecdotally, I was sort of expecting them to be top 15, top 10. Vrabel, he's had some turnover at the position the defensive coordinator position, excuse me. But like you look at that defense and they got players on there.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely have players. The problem is defending the pass. They were 32nd against the pass this last year, which is, it's dead last. It's terrible. And they gave up a lot of big plays. I think when you add a guy like Arden Key who could rush the passer from the inside, also as an edge guy, and you mix that in with Jeffrey Simmons, who in my opinion is a top 3 defensive tackle, interior guy. You got Danico Autry. They have a lot up front. It's just how will Howard Landry bounce back? That's the big thing. He had the torn ACL last September, and it hasn't been a full calendar year. We didn't get to see him in OTAs and minicamp, but that pass rush, that's where it starts. That's exactly where it starts. But you look at the second level, they lost a guy like David Long Jr., who I think is an outstanding. I mean, he's one of those guys that, you get the all-22, and I always watch 51 specifically just for the entertainment that he brings. The way he flows to the football, how he blows up blocks, how he weaves around the offensive lineman, his coverage, but he's not there anymore. He's in Miami. And I think, the addition of Azeez Al-Shire from San Francisco, I think that's going to help cover that. So they should be solid in the second level. Then you look at the secondary, it's really about the corners. Christian Fulton is in a contract year. He has to find a way to get healthy. I talked to, some people from his camp, and what he looked to do this off season, he trained in Miami with a trainer who worked with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, and it was specifically to eliminate soft tissue injuries. So that's going to be interesting watching him. He'll be a left corner. You got Sean Murphy-Bunting, the free agent addition, Roger McCreary as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that secondary works. And by the way, Kevin Byard is the best safety in football, the most complete, in my opinion. You got Amani Hooker with him. So they have the players there. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
Anytime, by the way, and sorry, Kate, not to jump in there, but anytime we talk about the Titans, we really need to keep the Deion Sanders tweet handy. Just so he's like, you stay being a fan, I'll stay being the man. And Kevin Byard's like, dude, I'm an all-pro safety. What are you talking about? Do you watch this game?
Unbelievable. That was the year he led the league in interceptions.
All time. For me, it's hard to bet against the Titans, even if they are in, a rebrand or retool. And I can't remember what the word was that you said specifically.
Reload.
Because they're so well coached. And you look at someone like Vrabel, I mean, he is a dog, but there has been a lot of coaching brain drain, I guess, for a better lack of word, where a lot of these assistants have become so successful that they have moved on. You look at Matt LaFleur, you look at Arthur Smith, just to name a few of them. Has that kind of affected the team at all, that these really smart brains have moved on to other teams?
I think offensively it did. Todd Downing was a great dude. He had great play design and things like that. But when it came time to calling the plays and layering them, it just didn't work. So now that you have Tim Kelly in tow, then you look at Charles London, who came over from Atlanta. He's the pass game coordinator / quarterbacks coach. The quarterback coach, Pat O'Hara, moved to a pass game analyst. Derrick Henry's position coach is now the tight ends coach, and he's a run game coordinator. So you had some shuffles, and then they have consistently had Rob Moore, who I think is one of the best receiver coaches in the league. He's working with the receivers, and you got Coach Alton, who came over from the Broncos, working with the running backs. So, excuse me, they have plenty of offensive minds. It's just going to be a matter of bringing them all together. And I think, if they could do it successfully, it kind of reminds me of the Eagles 2017. You look at Philly Special. That was a play that Press Taylor, his assignment was to bring them trick plays. And he had watched that play. The Bears did it the previous year, and he brought it to Doug Peterson, and, they put that in the playbook. And then you look at Zach Ertz, his touchdown on the slant, it was a combination. Like, they have motion and different things to set it up. It was a combination of plays. And that particular play design was a collaboration of multiple coaches, John DeFilippo, Doug Peterson, Frank Wright, as well as Press Taylor. They all came together and pulled different things from plays and put it into that one. So I say all that to say, if they can have that type of synergy and collaboration, which has been a key word throughout the organization this offseason, if they can have that, then I think you can have some success.
The offensive line is something that Tennessee prided itself on, or not prided itself on, but just like leaned on, right? I mean, Derrick Henry is a stud, but that offensive line for so long was just very, very consistent. And it feels like if we're going to use the term reloading, maybe offensive line's a good place to start. They bring in Andre Dillard at left tackle. Eagles fans not upset that the Titans paid him. I'll be honest. They were not mad that the Titans went out and spent on him, draft Peter Skoronski in the first round. What are you seeing about this offensive line in terms of its ability to be ready to go from Jump Street? Because critical for every team, but really critical for the Titans to get downhill with that offensive line.
Yeah, they've also added a free agent in Daniel Brunskill from the 49ers. So you got 3 new starters.
Yeah.
Skoronski is probably going to play left guard. Excuse me, I got this summer cold, man.
You're
Sorry
fine.
about that. Andre Dillard will be the left tackle. And he's an interesting situation because, it was just a unique thing that happened there in Philly, whereas Jordan Mailata just developed into a top left tackle. And it's just the best players are going to play, and Dillard couldn't get on the field after Mailata developed that way. But I think when you look at the offensive line, the left guard last year, Aaron Brewer has moved to center, and they're all about, firing off the football, being fast, playing with more tempo. And excuse me, I think when you look at that, right, there's a lot of athleticism up front. Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle. So they're just going to look to it's different from the Roger Saffold days and Ben Jones and those guys, where they were just overpowering people up front. I think you're going to see more of that zone type of scheme.
Interesting.
It's just going to be like more athletic. I think that's really what it comes down to. I do think they'll be better in pass pro. That was an area they struggled mightily last year. With Dennis Daly at left tackle, it wasn't cutting it. And I think Dillard will be a upgrade from that.
So do you think that the run, do you think they'll change in terms of the play calling and the style of running plays that they use with Henry, where it's more zone, one cut, sort of, you mentioned the 49, you mentioned Brunskill coming from San Francisco.
Yeah.
I guess you could, Dillard was really athletic coming out of college. Is it a case of maybe they're going to just try to alter how they operate and will that work for Henry?
I think they're going to remain very, very similar, stretch, outside zone, that type of stuff, inside zone as well. You'll probably see, man, it's tough to talk, man. You'll probably see a mixture of power and gap as well. But I think for the most part, when you have a guy like Henry, who is so good at stringing it out, putting his foot in the ground and cutting it back, finding that lane, that design cutback lane, that's where a lot of his home runs happen. So they're definitely going to continue to incorporate that. It would be crazy not to.
I tell you what, there's nothing worse than a summer cold. In the winter, you expect it and you think it's like the season, and then all of a sudden in the summer, you're like, no, it's warm outside. What's happening to me?
That was the one thing about COVID that was like I said, I got a 9-year-old. It was like when kids weren't going to school. It was nobody got sick. You're like, holy crap. The entire winter of going of not feeling absolute butt because my child is dragging him every cold possible. Yeah, but so, summer cold is a brutal one for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. It only comes to get that tickle. It only comes when I talk. So it's that.
And you could be drinking 4 gallons of water. It wouldn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That happened to me a couple weeks ago. I was fine all day. And then, of course, as soon as I get into the studio, you get that tickle in your throat. And you just, every time you go to talk, you're like, well, this is just what it is. But before we let you out of here, so you could cough your brains out and, get it all out. Titans win total. Okay, 7.5. Their win total in the division, which the division has gotten more interesting. That over under is at 3.5, with the under actually juiced to -140. How many wins is Tennessee getting this year?
I think they get 9 wins this year. Honestly,
okay.
It's just when you have Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Mike Vrabel, and that defense, you're always going to be good enough to not have a really high pick, barring injury. you're always going to be good enough. So I think, yeah, you look at 9 wins, I think that's very attainable. The division itself, I mean, the Colts are the Colts. The Texans, we know what has gone on there. I doubt they get swept by the Jaguars again. So, if I look at that, that's 4 wins right there.
4 wins right there. Okay, so we're taking the over on both of those. Thank you so much to Turron Davenport for hanging with us today and getting us all caught up on the Titans. Stay tuned for more from All 32 with daily drops in your podcast feed and on YouTube. Thank you again, Turron. It was a pleasure. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube page. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Turron.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.